and for the thousands in attendance and the millions that wish they were sitting in front of my bar at the moment, welcome to the first episode of At the Bar with Yo Adrian, where I'm going to explore the lives of some really interesting people. And one of those interesting people happens to share the same DNA and parents as myself, and that's Grant Galea. Welcome to the show, Grant.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Now, in front of you there, I've got a bottle there of Glenfiddich. It's 26 years. My son Joey actually bought that for me for my 50th birthday, and this is a complimentary drink that I'm going to give all my guests.
Cheers.
Probably not the same one.
No, I wouldn't be giving all your guests the same thing. They won't not appreciate it.
They might get the Macallans, they might get the Chivas Regal, but there's going to be good quality Scotch whisky here that's given out. Now, before I go any further, I just want to let you know that Grant Galea is quite the ultimate entertainer, and with his individual sense of style, charm, wit and velvet voice, he's entertained crowds all around the world, and in Australia of course, for over 30 years. Now Grant, first question for you, mate. What makes a great entertainer as opposed to just a great singer?
Well, singing is singing, and entertainers can entertain in many ways. They can sing, they can dance, they can be funny, they can comedy, they can play instruments. But I think an entertainer needs to encapsulate all of that, or a number of things besides just a good voice. I mean, there's many great singers that are technically great singers, and I don't consider myself to be technically a great singer by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's important to be an entertainer where your on-stage persona is personable, and you have to be sincere in what you do and put it over, and basically you treat the audience like they're guests in your living room, and there's an intimacy between you and the audience, a relationship that they walk out of there feeling that they've been truly entertained and they've got to know you a little better. And it's not just someone getting up there singing and going, oh, look how technically great I am, look at the notes I can hit, but not touching them emotionally. I think it's all about the emotion, touching people. Touching them, emotionally is what it's about, I think. And making them laugh and taking them on a journey, and like a roller coaster ride, because every show is a journey. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. Mm-hmm. Sure. There's highs and lows. So it's not just standing there going, I am a great singer, because if that was the case, I mean, everyone would be doing it.
Now, Grant, every aspiring artist was inspired by someone. I know myself, when I had that short little stint as an entertainer, one of my inspirations, I probably had two. One was Bobby Darin, the other one would have been Billy Joel. Who were your inspirations when you first started out?
Well, there's a number of them. I couldn't really say one in particular. I mean, I remember hearing Frank Sinatra at the Sands, which I think is the ultimate, live recording of any entertainer. And of course, Bobby Darin at the Cobra. So those two definitely come to mind. And you mentioned Billy Joel. Well, yeah, we grew up in the same house, and Billy Joel was certainly an influence on me. But I really didn't have the discipline to pursue a career as a singer-songwriter, and I couldn't, I didn't have the discipline to play piano for a start, and learn how to compose music. But I certainly had the ear for it, but I was just lazy. But I love the poetry of Billy Joel's lyrics. Those other guys, like your Bobby Darin, your Frank Sinatra, and of course the great singers of that time, Victor Moan, and great entertainers like Buddy Greco and so forth, the lounge, the crooners, the Italian-American crooners, they were a big influence on me. Yes, of course, they'd have to be. I mean, a lot of my act is basically a tribute to those guys from Las Vegas, the golden era of Las Vegas, between about 1960 to about 66.
They were fun times, yeah.
Yeah, they were great times, and those guys were real entertainers. They weren't just singers. They'd go out there and the audiences were taken on a journey, and that's That's what you try to do every time. You know, you want people to come back again. As Frank Sinatra once said about an audience is like a bride. You know, if you're indifferent with them, it's Endsville, it's Borsville. There's got to be a connection, a physical, like a chemistry between you and the audience.
Brothers aside, I've never seen an audience bored by your performance.
Well,
you always come, like, if the vocals aren't working, and they always are, normally are, you got those impressions which blows people away. I mean, I've never...
Well, the impressions is something that you got to...
I've never seen a person that can do impressions like you. It's unbelievable. Broad range of impressions, from politicians to actors to even everyday people.
Well, that came out of necessity, because I started in a show called Dean and Jerry, and I was the Dean Martin, and the Jerry Lewis was the comedy side of the show. And then when we split up after 3.5 years of working together, people weren't going to hire me on my own because I didn't have a comedy aspect to the show, so it was a bit of a big loss for me. But I wanted to continue working, so I auditioned a couple of Jerrys and it just didn't work. So I just thought, you know what, I can be funny too, or I can try to be. So I started doing impressions, and the audience liked it. So I chucked a few more into the act, and it just built from there. And then I thought, finally I have a choice now to make, and that is, do I continue on doing my acts the way I want to do it, where I'm in control and sing the songs I want to sing and pay tribute to the people that have influenced me, whether it's Sinatra, Elvis, Bobby Darin, you know, Tom Jones, whatever, and give people a glimpse of what that golden era of Las Vegas was about. And do I give them a bit of comedy? Do I incorporate my acting experience into the act? And I managed to do all of that and put it all into one show, and I came up with my own act. And I haven't looked back since, because, you know, I was, quite frankly, I didn't want to be just the Dean Martin guy in a Dean and Jerry show for the rest of my life.
You've been working probably longer than that 26-year-old single malt.
I have, yeah. I've actually
long in this industry.
I've actually got suits older than that Scotch, but only just. But yeah, 26 years is a great age for a single malt Scotch. But yeah, I've been punching on for 30 years now doing this, and
mate, that's a mortgage for most people.
Well, for me, it's a second one. but I don't want to stop. I mean, you know, I can't see myself doing anything else. I mean, obviously I can, yeah, acting, but that's about it. But there's not many film roles being offered to me on a day-to-day basis, or even a year-to-year basis, if truth be told. But I'm ready if it ever is. But right now I'll continue to do what I'm doing, and that is entertain the people as much as I can. And occasionally I'll bring out a CD, a record. You know, I'm going to be bringing out an album of movie themes next. And that's in the planning, and that's going to be something I've wanted to do. It is something I've wanted to do for so long, and great songs. There's some great songs in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, movie themes that a lot of people have probably forgotten about, and this will re-jog.
Can you give us a hint of a song
well,
exclusive here on Yo Adrian's
great songs. Well, there's the love theme from The Love Story, of course. You know, Where Do I Begin, it's called. And then you've got the Godfather theme. A lot of people don't realise that's actually a song. It has English lyrics and Italian lyrics. You know, great songs like An Affair to Remember from the film with Cary Grant and Deborah Carr. Then there's so many. And there's a great couple of Bond themes in there. And a great song which Matt Munro was one of my favourite singers. They called him the British Frank Sinatra. He hated that moniker, of course, but that's what they called him. And he was a London bus driver who became a great crooner, and he sang this lovely song called, it was in a film called, it's called On Days Like These, and it was in a film called The Italian Job with Michael Caine. You may remember the film,
the movie,
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Well, this was the theme song.
There you go.
This was the theme song, and it's a great song, and I'm going to record that as well. There'll be about 14 songs on the album, and I'll be putting it out on iTunes as well. Not because now you can't just bring out a CD; you've got to actually do it digitally.
Yeah, things are different now.
Yeah, things have changed. So the days of lugging around 500 CDs on a cruise ship with you and trying to sell 100 of them they're long gone. You know.
Talking about cruise ships, now you've performed on cruise ships, you've performed in clubs, alongside myself.
Yeah.
They were fun times. You've also performed doing corporate gigs for major companies, and like out of those audiences, which one's been your favourite audience?
Well, I can honestly say the corporate audiences would have to rank among the worst, because a lot of them, they're not really concerned, they're not listening, they're just there for an end of year Christmas party or you know, an awards night, and they're on the drink and they're tucking into the food, and quite frankly, the real Rat Pack, you know, Frank, Dean and Sammy could turn up and come back from the dead and be on stage, they couldn't care less. So they're not really interested. So you're basically singing over people talking. But in a situation where you're in an intimate room where people are paying good money to see you, and it's a dinner show and they put you on around the time of dessert, so they've had something to eat, so they're not restless, they're probably the better audiences. And of course, some of the more exclusive cruise ships have been wonderful, and you have a more discerning audience. And of course, some of the other end of the cruise ships, like, you know, let's just call them, for want of a better word, budget cruise lines. Some of those audiences can be just as great as the posh ones, you know, because people are people, no matter where you go. Whether they're rich or poor, they've got one thing in common: they need to be entertained. And if you can entertain them, and you know how to play that game and be able to relate to them, little idiosyncrasies, little things you say, little way, just certain songs that you pick, certain jokes that you tell, you've got to be able to sum up that audience pretty quickly before you go on stage. And no two shows are ever identical.
Sure.
And if they are, then your shows, it's not organic, it doesn't grow, you know. That's what I think anyway.
Now, I want you to answer this very, very carefully, this question. Because the audience out there, they probably think themselves, still a handsome looking guy, right?
Well, I'm in disguise.
Charming, very witty.
I'm in disguise because the tax office are looking for me. But anyway, apart from that, and a few other people.
And I realise you're still a very, very happily married man with two beautiful twin daughters.
Certainly right, the case, yes.
Tell us about, in the past, how'd you go with groupies? We're talking about audiences now. Was there ever a problem with groupies, or how about some pork chop that calls out something when you're singing?
Oh, there's always the pork chop.
I know it happens in pubs.
No, it happens in pubs. I remember one night at the Golden Sheaf, I was up there doing back in those days I was a rock and roller. I wasn't really doing the Sinatra or the croon thing, but I was doing a song, I think it was You May Be Right, or It's Still Rock and Roll to Me or something, and this pelican started throwing ice at me. And I told him nicely to stop, you know, and he continued. So I jumped off the stage and I hit him across the head with a microphone stand. And then,
really?
Yeah, and then continued until he was unconscious when I was finished with him. Yeah.
Did you ever work at that place again?
No. Funny enough, they never got me back there.
I wouldn't think so.
But yeah, there's certain places where you can't do that, so you've got to do something else. And usually you can do it with your wit, you know, which I prefer to do anyway. You know, you can say something like, you know, someone might say something and you might be like, hey pal, you know, I work alone, we're not a team, you know. You know, or, you know, what's your name? So they say their name, you go, oh, okay, Dolores, you know, who said you could talk to me? You know, there's so many different things you can say to them and put them down, and but in a way where, you know, you make them look like the idiot. Because quite frankly, 95% of the audience, once you've got them, they're there to see you. The problem with this reality television age is everybody wants to be part of the show.
So you're not a fan of reality TV?
Not at all. Not in by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, if I could blow it up with a nuclear warhead, I would.
They're basically making a lot of...
they're making a bunch of Neville Nobodies, no talents famous, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, back in the old days, you had to have talent.
It's also an opportunity for a lot of young people that wouldn't normally get that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, in the old days, they had RSL clubs. You know, you could get up at a RSL club and it'd be a talent show, and you'd get up. I never won any of those, and I'm glad I didn't, because it made me more determined to make a living as an entertainer. and it means nothing anyway. It's like, you know, Mo Awards and Blow Awards and all those other awards. You know, it's all that is. It's just the people in the industry backslapping and, you know, proverbially urinating in each other's pockets. That's basically what they do, and I couldn't care less. I just want to be remembered for what I do, and when I go, I want people to say, well, he was a great entertainer, you know.
Well, they will certainly say that, because
not he won this many awards.
putting aside the fact you're my brother, you are very, very entertaining. Very, very entertaining. Now, I've got a question for you. Now, I'm actually gonna ask every single person at the end of my episode podcast this same question. What change would you make to yourself if you had divine power and you could make any change possible to yourself? What would it be?
I'd have to change my underpants. That'd be the first thing.
No, seriously.
No.
You got divine power.
Well,
anything you'd like to change
it's
about
quite
yourself?
a hypothetical, isn't it? Because, you know, no one has divine power. No one knows what's around the corner. The only thing we can probably do is look back at our lives and try and sort of not let the past dictate the present or the future. So there's a lot of things I could have done, and you know, I think my biggest Achilles heel was always my temper. I never had my temperament. You know, there's times when I should have kept my mouth shut and I didn't. And
that famous Galea temper.
Yeah, there was that, and then there was times when
I'm hearing you, brother.
That's basically one of the biggest problems, I think, being able to control my emotions. And maybe if I would have applied myself more discipline, like, you know, maybe I should have learned to play the piano. That would have been good. I don't regret my days at acting school. I did my best. I was well received. My peers all thought I was, you know, a fine actor and that. But it's the right time, right place. It's who you know. There's a lot of that involved, and the opportunity might still be around the corner. You never know. You know, that's the great thing about this business. Someone can land a role when they turn 70, and you know, they're an overnight sensation. But it took them 50 years to get there.
Yeah. Well, on that note, as the great Sylvester Stallone says, if you can change, then I can change, then everybody can change. Now, we're finishing on a positive note. So until the next podcast.
If you're a chameleon, you can change many times.
True. So until the next podcast, I want everyone out there to treat each other like you'd like to be treated yourself, and don't take any shit from anybody. See you later.